So we're in this series called I Love You, But You Drive Me Crazy, right? Was that note okay? And we've been exploring all the treasure and the trauma of being in a relationship. And maybe you felt the treasure and the trauma way more intensely during this time. You know, it's a tough time economically around the world. It's just a difficult time. So today we're talking about how to make things grow. Nikki put a garden for us together up front here. She came here last night or yesterday and spent a lot of time putting this little garden together for us. But we're talking about how to make things grow, and specifically we're talking about how to make relationships grow. Okay, we've been in the series about relationships, and so for the next 25 or so minutes, I want you to keep one image squarely in your mind, and this is it. Your life is a garden. Nudge somebody, okay, and just tell them your life is a garden. Okay. And your life is a garden. You are the gardener. Okay, and all your most cherished relationships will either blossom and bloom and bear fruit, or they will wither, dry up, and perish, depending on how you cultivate and care for them right now. And first, that might sound like a lot of pressure, or maybe it sounds like bad news. Maybe you are in real life just a terrible gardener and your back garden looks terrible. During the various lockdowns, Nix and I, like the rest of the country, spent a lot of time in the back garden fixing it. I reseeded our back garden with grass seed because our dog Chase had literally created crisscross paths across our garden, literally highways, because he kind of just tears through the grass. And what a mission to fix it. First cultivate, then seed, then water, then protect from the birds and the squirrels. And I seem to have spent all the lockdowns dealing with the latter, protecting my grass, which was growing beautifully, from the squirrels and the pigeons and who knows what else. Nix also, for some reason, accepted our neighbor's greenhouse, which they were giving away. I didn't want her to accept it because I knew it was going to be a huge mission to disassemble this thing and reassemble this thing. And if you've ever done that, the glass panels are extremely fragile. But we got it, and she put it together, or we both did together, without much hassle, and it survived. And so Nikki started to use this greenhouse, and she started to grow plants in there, vegetables, peppers, tomatoes, and flowers. It was amazing what she got out of that greenhouse. Now, the entire story of the Bible, from beginning to end, can be understood through the single image: a garden. It says there, in the beginning, the Lord God planted a garden in Eden. It goes on to say, out of the ground, the Lord God made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Further on, it says, a river flows out of Eden to water the garden. So right at the beginning, the Bible invites us to think of God as a gardener. And then, as gardeners do, God bends down to work in the soil. Goes on to say there, the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. This gardener God is earthy. He is personal. He is near. And in chapter 1, though, God is a God of the cosmos. Cosmos, if you're American, I guess. Far off, creating stars and planets and moons. But in Genesis chapter 2, God is down close. God is getting his hands dirty. It says there in Genesis 2:15, then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till and to keep it. But of course, humans don't till and keep this garden. And by Genesis chapter 12, everything is ruined. And of course, there are a lot of plot points in the development of this garden. And we'll get to some of those in a moment. But for now, let's skip to the end. At the end of the story, a follower of Jesus named John of Patmos had a vision of how things would end. And at the end of all things, when this gardener God has healed and restored everything, John of Patmos saw this. Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every year, and the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. In this garden, this renewed garden, God walks with human beings once again, just like the first garden. John of Patmos also saw this. It says, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and He will dwell among them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God." That's Revelation 21 verse 3. And now that God is with humans again, it says further, He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. The end of the story in this is this particular conclusion that the garden flourishes again. All things have been fixed. Garden at the beginning, garden at the end. And now in this story of the garden, from the beginning all the way till the end, there is a force that opposes this gardener God and His great project, His grand project, and this force is called the desert. The desert is where the Hebrew slaves have had to wander once they've been rescued by God from Egypt, but they've rejected the gardener God who rescued them. The desert is where Jesus is tempted by the devil, and when Jesus announces that He is going to change everything that they say about Him, make a straight path in the desert to prepare the way of the Lord. And so, on one level, the Bible is the story of a struggle between a garden and a desert, green, flourishing plants that bear fruit, or dry, withering desert. The same is true, can I say, of your garden. Okay? Your relationships will either strive or wither. Your relationships will, based on how you water and cultivate them, will either strive or wither. So I want to give you 3 Bible-based, scientifically backed ways to water your garden. Are you ready? I'll give you a 4th bonus way if you stick around until the end, and don't get offended with me by then. And let's start with the first 3, right? Now these will work well for any relationship, okay, that you want to blossom. 3 simple ways. Number 1, say thank you. Ask a question. Say a prayer. Let's talk about the power of saying thank you in your relationships. One 2015 study concluded that expressing gratitude toward your partner is the most consistent predictor of marital quality. And I want to submit to you that saying thank you would work great for any relationship. The Bible suggests that relationships between followers of Jesus are supposed to be different. They're supposed to take on a different tone and character than the relationships out there in the world. And the Bible has a single word that captures this difference in behavior. It's the word allelu. Okay? In Greek, that translates to the phrase one another. Okay? And this phrase, one another, is used 100 different times in the Bible to capture almost 60 different commands on how followers of Jesus are to treat one another. Some examples, okay? Love one another. From John 13. It occurs almost 16 times. Consider one another better than yourselves. That's in Philippians chapter 2. But the one that I want to talk to you about here is this one that says, encourage one another, from 1 Thessalonians. You're commanded by God, guys. You are commanded by God to be encouraging. And that means if you identify yourself as a follower of Jesus, wherever you go, at home, your neighborhood, at the store, there should be a trail of encouragement following right along behind you. This means that among followers of Jesus, there shall be no more Karens. Yeah? If you're not familiar with the concept of a Karen, Karen is internet lingo, okay, for someone who's acting entitled. You know, step off, I'm going to call the police, that kind of entitlement, right? For example, maybe overly demanding of the retail staff at Aldi or somewhere, wherever you shop. Do not mistreat these retail staff. Consider them better than yourselves. Now, a word to people actually named Karen, if they're here or online, who don't behave this way. I have deep sympathy for you, okay? My middle name is Warren, and my name is associated with rabbits, okay? And I'm very sorry to you and that this is your cultural norm. But here, we're commanded to be encouraging, and to say thank you is a powerful way to encourage someone. It's a countercultural way for you to nurture your most important relationships. And there's a pretty remarkable scientific explanation for why the simple act of saying thank you to your partner, is good for relationships, or to people in your life. Is good for your relationships. A study in 2011 found saying thank you to your partner led to a more positive perception of that person. If you say thank you to someone, you end up viewing them more positively. In this study, a group of couples were given a series of questions to evaluate one another, and then one group of couples said thank you to each other for actual things going on in their relationship, while the other did simply nothing, none of that. And then both groups were given another set of questions to evaluate each other. The set of couples who said thank you scored far higher on the second evaluation. Proverbs 11:25 says this, "Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Interestingly, this can be translated, "Whoever waters others will be watered." A few years ago, Nikki and I took personality inventories. I forget the name of the test that we did. It might have been Strength Finders. What was it? Myers-Briggs or something like that, and her results said that expressions of appreciation were particularly meaningful for her. So as often as I could, I expressed gratitude. I still do, I hope, I don't know, to her, and I could tell that she felt like she felt refreshed. She felt it was refreshing. In other words, I like this. And so I learned that saying thank you is a powerful way to encourage somebody. It's a powerful way to nurture your most important relationships. So maybe after this meeting today, tell somebody that you care about, just tell them thank you. Or text somebody, maybe an old friend, and say thank you to them. That'd be a good thing to do. So thank you, ask a question, pray a prayer. Let's talk about asking questions. It turns out that asking questions is a garden thing to do. Did you know that? In the first garden, in Genesis chapter 3, the humans have failed to keep and to till the garden. They broke the one rule that God had set before them, which was do not eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Wow, that's a mouthful. Hey? And then after the humans do this, they hide. Isn't that such a human response? To mess up royally, hugely, and then run away. Now, the daily routine for those first humans and for God in the garden was for them to walk together with God every afternoon. And then on that particular afternoon, when God comes to walk with them, He cannot find these humans. And so He asks them such a mysterious question. He could have asked, "What have you done?" He could have said, "How could you?" He could make a statement instead of ask a question, but he asks this question, "Where are you?" Now, presumably, God knows exactly where they're hiding. He is God after all, right? And so this question takes on several deeper layers. Where are you emotionally? Or where are you spiritually? Or what does hiding your physical person say about the rest of you? This gardener God asked his wayward children a question. Asking a question is a garden thing to do because it's a relational thing to do. Yeah? Even though these humans have ruined the garden, this gardener God still loves them and he wants a relationship with them. And by the way, the gardener God loves you. Okay? And he wants your relationships to thrive and to blossom. And here's the thing. What question might this gardener God be asking you right now, just by the way? Well, it turns out that asking questions is a fantastic way to nurture relationships. In the 1990s, a researcher by the name of Arthur Aaron set out to craft a scientifically backed list of questions to make you fall in love. Okay? And he came up with, listen to this, a specific list of 36 questions, right? And later, researchers says, well, they don't really make you fall in love, okay? But they are really great for promoting great and close and deep relationships. They're remarkable questions. So, some examples. Question number 14. Is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time, and why have you not done it yet? Has anybody ever asked you that question? Number 3. Before making a phone call, do you ever rehearse what you're going to say? If so, why? Number 5. When did you last sing to yourself or to somebody else? Okay? I remember when Nikki and I, we were kind of toying with the idea of seeing each other, and we were in this cafe right by this pond in South Africa, and guess what? She started to sing to me. How romantic. Hey? I asked, oh, okay. Well, I think we traded. I was going to tell her a story, and then she was going to sing a song to me. That's what it was. One question, question number 4, it goes like this. What would constitute a perfect day for you? Asking an open-ended question is good for your relationships, guys. Listen to that, okay? Like the gardener God, ask questions because you love the other person. Sit down with somebody important to you this week and ask them a question. And so, say thank you, ask a question, pray a prayer. A powerful and mysterious passage on prayer is 1 Thessalonians 5:18, and it says that pray without ceasing. Yeah? It's powerful, it's mysterious, but it's also overwhelming. I don't know if you ever felt that. Like it would require this heroic effort to spend the whole day in a quiet room alone petitioning God. Maybe sometimes that's okay to do that. But Dallas Willard argues that heroism of this kind is almost always incompatible with following the humble Jesus Christ. Instead, he argues that to pray without ceasing means to invite God into everything that you'd normally be doing each day. To ask Him to bless and guide you as you move through your daily routine. Just ask God for help with your normal stuff. It's a way of partnering with God to nurture your garden. Dallas said this, and we can read it together. He says, everything that comes into your day, each person, every activity, and even or especially every interruption is an opportunity for you and Jesus to bless. If you're going to make biscuits, bless them. They will taste better. No matter what you're doing, try to remember to bless it. Whatever it is, say, the Lord bless you. The Lord cause His face to shine upon you. The Lord make the best that you can be. Make you the best that you can be. You see this as resting under the good government of God, under His loving gaze and care. Lift everything up to Him in that way. Train yourself to use each change of person or event to remind you to pray, to bless, so that mere change becomes a signal to your mind back to God. Do this, and you will shortly master the secret of praying without ceasing. So learn to pray your way through your daily routine, whatever that may look like. God, bless this morning's schedule. God, bless this morning as I interact with my family and we get ready for our day. Bless this Zoom meeting. Bless this dinner that I'm making for my 2 hungry kids, or whatever it may be. This activity is especially powerful for relationships. Besides, backing the power of prayer in relationships is surprisingly strong, or perhaps not surprisingly, depending on how you look at it. One study found that people who prayed for their spouses, listen to this, guys, please, whether you're married or not, or you have friends or roommates, whatever, this applies, okay? But they found that people who prayed for their spouses more often reported having less stress in their marriage when compared to those who prayed less often. Another study looked at 200 couples married 10 years or more, and they found that couples who prayed for each other had higher marital satisfaction and higher levels of commitment. And this will work with any relationship. The key, according to the research, is the kind of prayer that you pray. It cannot be prayers like, please, Lord, make it stop. Or please, Lord, remove this burden from me, and point at the person there. Instead, there have to be prayers that focus on the other person's well-being. In other words, prayers of blessing. And I want you to start that right now. I want you to get into the habit of praying prayers of blessing for the people that you love, even when they're driving you crazy. Okay? So for a moment, won't you bow your heads, close your eyes. Okay, Nikki's going to play a song right now. I said earlier I'd share a fourth way. You're still here, so I can share the fourth way with you to make relationships grow. But maybe as you looked at the other 3 ways, you're thinking, I'm way too tired. I'm just way too tired. Okay? And for those, maybe you're thinking something even darker at this point. Maybe you're thinking something darker. Maybe you're thinking, I don't even like my family or my friends. I cannot imagine investing in them in this way. I cannot imagine saying thank you to them. I'm just trying to imagine my life without them. Well, this fourth way is for you. Now, the key plot point between the ruined garden at the beginning of the story and the restored perfect garden at the end, interestingly enough, this key central plot point also takes place in a garden after Jesus was crucified. The Gospel of John tells us this. It says, at the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden. And in the garden, a new tomb in which no one had ever been placed. And then on the 3rd day, after Jesus is dead, some of Jesus' followers enter that garden and visit his body, and John tells us that they'd seen the risen King. They'd seen the risen Jesus. He's now been resurrected, but they mistake him for the gardener. They mistake him for the gardener. Jesus, standing there, resurrected, asked his follower Mary Magdalene what she's doing in the garden at the tomb. And she says this, they have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you are looking for? And then, thinking he was the gardener, she said, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him. Early Christians said that the resurrection of Jesus meant that he was now king over everything. He was now in charge of the universe. And the creed that captured this idea that Jesus was in charge was the phrase, Jesus is Lord. Yeah? And that's how they would greet one another. That's how they would sign their letters, with a reminder that Jesus was in control and that it was good news. Because all the powers of the world, the greedy and the cruel and the violent forces of this world, were now dethroned. And Jesus, the kind and humble and gracious Jesus, was now in charge of the universe, and he's going to bring new life to all things. And the Gospel of John's playful and poetic way to say that Jesus was now in charge of the universe is to say in this passage that he used the gardener. He is now responsible to make the universe flourish and thrive and blossom and bloom. And the end result, the great promise of the Bible, is that one day we will arrive in this flourishing garden from the book of Revelation, where God dwells with humans and he wipes away every tear. The gardener Jesus, guys, loves you. He loves you. He wants to help you, and he wants to help you put him in charge of your life. You can ask Jesus for help with your garden. You can ask Jesus for the power to say thank you. You can ask Jesus for help to ask a question or to pray a prayer. You can ask him for the change of heart to even do those things that we've just mentioned. You can put him in charge of your life. You can put him in charge of things that you have in your life. Maybe you've never put Jesus in charge of your life before. I want to invite you to do that today. Maybe you've never asked him to be in charge of your life. Maybe it's a sentiment that you haven't expressed in a long time. I'd like to invite you to put Jesus in charge of things today. I want to give you a few moments right now. Next, you're welcome to play that song again, to ask Jesus for help with your garden. Okay? In your own words, in your own way, tell Jesus that you want his help, that you want to put him in charge of the things in your life today. If you're asking for the help of Jesus for the very first time, we would love to partner with you on your journey, to support you in whatever way that we can. And so right now, just everybody bow your heads, close your eyes. Right now, just for a few moments, talk to this gardener God.